There was once a time when the map of Africa was not divided by borders drawn by foreign hands, but by rivers of wisdom, kinship, and spiritual energy flowing between its people. Long before the sound of ships arrived upon its coasts, before the word slave scarred its history, Africa was a single breath spoken through many tongues. Ethiopia and Igbo were not distant nations. They were intertwined roots of the same sacred tree. They shared not just trade or bloodline, but vision, an unbroken link of ancient power, intellect, and divine kingship. Yet there came a day of parting, not of hate, but of destiny. The great separation when the Igbo left the Ethiopian throne was not a rebellion, it was the call of destiny, echoing across generations, summoning a people to fulfill their appointed path. Imagine the highlands of ancient Ethiopia, its mountains glowing gold at sunrise, its temples whispering in the wind, its kings anointed not by wealth but by wisdom. There stood a dynasty so old that even the sands of Axum called them ancestors. Among them were Igbo nobles, scribes, and mystics, men and women who traced their bloodline to the stars, who spoke with the rhythm of the earth. They were builders of altars, readers of signs, custodians of the sacred fire that symbolized truth. They understood the order of the universe, what the Egyptians called Ma'at, what the Ethiopians called Tewahedo, what the Igbo would one day call Omanala, the divine law of balance and destiny. For centuries, these kingdoms lived as one family, sharing stories, symbols, and spirit. The drums of Ethiopia carried the same pulse as those of the Niger. The Nsibidi symbols of Igbo lands were once carved on the walls of Aksumite shrines. They spoke of creation, justice, and renewal. But as time moved, the whispers of destiny began to divide the flame into two. The Igbo, known then as the keepers of light, began to feel a deep calling, a yearning to move southward, to establish their own sacred order. Prophets arose among them who spoke of a river that would mirror the stars, of fertile lands where ancestors would walk again through their children. This migration was not exile, it was evolution, the separation of twin flames to illuminate two sides of the same divine plan. When the great separation came, it shook the heavens and tested the hearts of kings. Some say the throne of Ethiopia wept that day, for it lost not rebels but brothers. The Igbo departed with blessings, carrying relics, wisdom, and symbols of the old empire, the sacred staff of balance, the scrolls of the ancestors, and the code of honor that would later shape their republics and councils. As they journeyed across the lands, they did not travel as wanderers but as guardians of an eternal covenant. Wherever they stopped, they built shrines and carved memory into stone. The Nile carried their songs and the wind carried their promise. Their journey became legend, their wisdom the seed of civilizations. When they settled in the lush valleys of the Niger, they reawakened the ancient fires of Ethiopia under new names and symbols. The Ofo became their scepter of truth, the Ekte their council of wisdom, and the Nsibidi their sacred alphabet of light. They turned memories into law, traditions into science, and spirituality into art. Even in their new homeland, they never forgot the hills of Axum or the royal halls they once walked. They carried Ethiopia within them, not as a nation but as a soul. The Ethiopian throne was no longer a seat of kings. It became a throne in their hearts, a reminder that leadership is not a crown but a covenant. Yet this separation was not without pain. It tested the spirit of unity, for separation often breeds silence before it breeds understanding. For generations, the world forgot this link, rewriting Africa as fragments instead of a masterpiece. The colonizers told stories that erased these ancestral unions, painting the Igbo and Ethiopians as strangers. But history cannot be buried beneath it. The genetic echoes of Ethiopia are still found in the Igbo. Their languages share tones, their rituals mirror symbols, their sense of divinity resonates like distant thunder returning home. The drums of both peoples still speak to one another through the rhythm of ancestors, and though oceans and empires have risen between them, the spirit of the great separation still teaches us something profound, that unity is not sameness but harmony. The Igbo did not abandon Ethiopia, they expanded it. They carried the light of the throne into the jungles, the valleys, the markets, and the villages. ensuring that the spirit of the highlands would never die. They became the torchbearers of freedom, the guardians of knowledge and the voice of courage across time. The Great Separation reminds us that identity is not confinement but creation. It teaches that every journey away from home is a return to destiny in disguise. We must understand that history is not merely about where people went but about what they carried. The Igbo carried with them the royal science of Ethiopia, the art of governance by council, the mathematics of the stars and the deep philosophy of balance between man and nature. They transformed these lessons into the spiritual system of Chi, where each individual connects directly to the divine spark. This concept mirrors the Ethiopian theology of unity between the human soul and the cosmic order across time and continents. These philosophies whispered the same truth, that greatness is not inherited from empires but earned through harmony with purpose. When we look back at this story today, we do not see a tale of division. We see a divine choreography of destiny. The Great Separation was not a tragedy, it was a rebirth. It allowed Africa's wisdom to stretch across lands, to evolve in dialects, to diversify like rivers flowing from a single source. Ethiopia kept the memory of the crown. The Igbo carried the spirit of the crown. Together they formed the dual heartbeat of a continent that would one day need to remember its rhythm again. For those listening now, the message is clear. We are not orphans of history, we are its continuation. Every African soul is a bridge between lost kingdoms, every heartbeat a drum calling for reunion. The Great Separation calls to us even now to restore what was broken not by war but by forgetting. When an Igbo child looks at the Ethiopian cross, when an Ethiopian elder hears the sound of Igbo drums, the ancestors smile for the river remembers its source. This story is not about thrones or crowns, it is about identity. It tells us that power does not die when people move, it transforms. The Igbo became masters of democracy, trade, and philosophy because they carried the DNA of royal wisdom. Ethiopia remained a beacon of sovereignty because it kept the flame of faith and structure. Together they formed the two wings of African genius, spirit and intellect, tradition and transformation. And now, as we stand in an age of rediscovery, the echoes of that ancient separation return, not as sorrow but as awakening. The voices of Ethiopia and Igbo speak again through historians, through language, through music, through those who refuse to let Africa's truth remain buried. We are remembering, we are rebuilding, we are returning not to a place but to a truth that our ancestors already knew, that Africa was one before the world called it many. The Great Separation was only a pause in a greater story, a story that began with shared blood and will end with shared purpose. When the Igbo left the Ethiopian throne, they did not walk away from glory, they carried glory into the world. They became walking empires of wisdom, proof that the crown of Africa was never metal but mind, never power but principle, never lost but waiting to be remembered. So today, when you speak of the Igbo and the Ethiopian, do not speak of nation, speak of echoes of reflections, of two fires born of one flame. For the Great Separation was not an ending, it was the beginning of Africa's eternal conversation with itself, a conversation still being whispered through every heartbeat that remembers where it came from and knows where it is going. There was once a time when power was measured not by crowns of gold or thrones of marble, but by the wisdom carried in the hearts of men. In the days when Africa still remembered her voice and her kingdom spoke to the stars, there existed a bridge between Ethiopia's highlands and the green river valleys that would one day be called Igbo land. Upon that bridge walked a people of profound spirit, carriers of royal codes, of sacred knowledge that was both political and spiritual. They were the sons and daughters of the Ethiopian court, yet they were also the children of a destiny that demanded transformation. When the time came for migration, they did not flee, they evolved. They walked away from the throne not in rebellion but in revelation, taking with them something more enduring than gold or empire. They took the blueprint of leadership that serves, not rules. From the Ethiopian highlands, where kings were crowned beneath the gaze of ancient suns, to the flowing rivers of the Niger, these travelers bore a memory of divine kingship. They remembered that true power came not from the height of a throne, but from the depth of a council. In Ethiopia, they had seen both the glory and burden of monarchy. They witnessed how kingdoms could rise and decay, how emperors could command armies yet fail to command justice. And so as they moved southward through the deserts and forests, a quiet transformation began. They carried with them the traditions of the Solomonic court, the belief that leadership is sacred, that to rule is to serve. But in the deep heart of the Igbo forests, where the air pulsed with the rhythm of drums and the whisper of ancestors, that idea changed form. The Igbo did not reject the memory of the throne, they redefined it. The kingship that once sat upon golden seats was reborn in the gathering circle, where elders and diviners spoke in unity and every man became both subject and sovereign. It was one of history's quietest revolutions. A royal wisdom turned into a people's philosophy. While the world elsewhere pursued empires built upon conquest, the Igbo built a republic founded upon conscience. They called it Oha na Eze, the people and the king, not as separate forces but as one living spirit. The power of the crown was no longer a symbol worn by one man but a sacred trust shared by the many. This was the evolution of the throne from monarchy to democracy, from divine right to divine responsibility. And yet in that transformation nothing was truly lost. The Ethiopian codes of order, discipline, and sacred authority still pulsed beneath Igbo society. The rituals of initiation, the respect for cosmic order, the understanding that every decision must align with both the ancestors and the unborn. All these ideas were carried intact, woven into the cultural DNA of the Igbo nation. Even the ancient symbols remained, though reshaped by the language of the forests. The staff of authority became the Ofo, the sacred emblem of truth and justice. The king's council became the Enza na Ozo, where wisdom guided leadership. In every decision made by consensus, one can still hear the faint echo of Ethiopia's royal court, but this time it speaks through the collective voice of the people. It is one of the greatest untold stories of African civilization, that the journey from Ethiopia to Igbo land was not merely geographical but philosophical. The migration did not only create a new people, it created a new idea of civilization itself. It proved that royalty is not a bloodline but a state of consciousness, that leadership can exist without domination, that power can serve instead of control. It showed that an empire of justice could live in the soul of a people without walls, without armies, and without king. This was not a loss of greatness, it was its rebirth in a purer form. Over the centuries, the memory of that journey faded in records but not in spirit. The names of the first travelers were forgotten by the world but remembered by the earth. The rivers that carried them still whisper their story. The mountains that sheltered them still echo their songs. Their wisdom became the seed of a civilization that would later confound colonizers and scholars alike, a society so sophisticated in governance, yet without a central monarch. The Igbo Confederacy, born of ancestral royalty yet built on communal rule, became a mystery to those who tried to measure Africa by foreign standards. But to those who can see deeper, it is clear the Igbo were not without kings. They were kings who had chosen to sit among their people rather than above them. This transformation was more than political, it was spiritual and intellectual. It preserved the Ethiopian respect for divine hierarchy while expressing it through social equality. It taught that every human being carries within them a spark of sacred authority and that true harmony comes when those sparks unite into a flame that lights the path for all. That idea became the cornerstone of Igbo civilization. A civilization that valued debate over decree, truth over tradition, and community over conquest. It is a lesson the modern world has yet to fully learn. In the ruins of forgotten kingdoms, archaeologists search for thrones and crowns, but the real treasure lies in the hearts of those who remember. The connection between Ethiopia and the Igbo is not written only in bloodlines or artifacts, but in philosophies that mirror each other across time. In both lands, leadership was sacred and justice divine. In both, the ruler was not above the people but bound by moral duty to serve them. The difference was that the Igbo carried that duty into every household until each man became a custodian of his own destiny. When we study that evolution from the thrones of Axum to the councils of Igbo Ukwu, we see the very essence of African resilience. It is the story of a people who refused to be defined by the structures of the past, who took the best of their heritage and reshaped it into something freer, wiser, and more enduring. The Igbo journey from Ethiopian royalty to Republican fellowship stands as one of humanity's greatest lessons in the transformation of power. It whispers to us that kingship does not die when the crown is removed. It lives when every person learns to wear it in spirit. Today, as nations struggle with corruption, greed, and leadership crises, this ancient African wisdom still speaks. It tells us that the true measure of civilization is not how high the throne stands, but how wide the circle of the people's voice reaches. The Igbo, born from Ethiopia's royal seed, understood that leadership is not the art of ruling others but of ruling oneself in harmony with the greater order. Their ancestors walked away from the golden palaces of Axum not because they rejected glory but because they sought a higher kind, the glory of shared destiny, of collective honor, of freedom governed by truth. That is the legacy of the throne that walked to the river. That is the message of the ancestors who traded crowns for councils, kingdoms for communities. They proved that power can evolve without losing its soul, that a people can be royal without needing a ruler. And if the world could remember that lesson, that leadership is service, that unity is strength, and that every man and woman carries within them the spirit of the crown, then perhaps humanity would rise again, not to conquer but to understand. That is what the Igbo carried from the highlands of Ethiopia to the heart of Africa, the wisdom that leadership belongs not to one but to all. They say there are moments in human history when a single decision, a single journey, or a single silence changes the course of civilizations. Such was the Great Separation, that hidden dawn when the children of Ethiopia, the guardians of the sun's first throne, walked away from the highlands and became the ancestors of the Igbo people. It was not a migration of defeat but of destiny, not an exile but a rebirth written in fire and memory. Across the Red Sea's whispering winds and the sacred hills of Axum, the drums of departure sounded not as mourning but as prophecy. They carried no weapons, only the knowledge of stars, the sacred geometry of balance, and the unbroken will of those chosen to remember what others forgot. They did not turn their backs on Ethiopia. They carried her essence into the jungles, rivers, and red earth of a land that would one day be called Igboland. To understand the separation, one must look beyond the dust of maps and the brittle ink of foreign history. The Igbo story and the Ethiopian throne are threads of the same ancient cloth, woven in the language of ancestors and tested by time's cruelty. Both peoples shared symbols of kingship that predated any empire, rituals older than temples, and wisdom that whispered of the balance between life and the unseen. When the Ethiopian dynasty fractured through wars of pride, divine silence, and the struggle for cosmic authority, a chosen remnant left. They sought not land but restoration. They were the keepers of equilibrium, the stewards of sacred order, and in their exodus they carried with them the essence of divine kingship. That is why in the Igbo world, kings were not masters but custodians of harmony. Their crowns were not ornaments of conquest but emblems of responsibility. The same spirit that once ruled the mountains of ancient Ethiopia, long before Rome carved its empire, before Greece sang of gods, before Babylon dreamt of ziggurats, the Igbo and Ethiopian worlds were already connected by invisible highways of spirit and intellect. The Great Separation was not a breaking of unity but a distribution of purpose. The highlands kept the visible throne, the forest kept the invisible law. When one people became the light that ruled from stone palaces, the other became the flame that hid in heart. That duality is why the Igbo concept of chi mirrors the Ethiopian belief in divine order, that each man and woman carries a spark of the supreme within. When these travelers crossed from the high plateaus into the valleys and rivers, they did not abandon empire. They carried the idea of divine monarchy into the human soul. Every Igbo village, with its council of elders and balance between male and female leadership, was a reimagined throne, one not of gold but of equality, justice, and eternal remembrance. The echoes of this journey still breathe through language, bloodlines, and symbols. The Nsibidi script, mysterious and geometric, carries shadows of Ethiopian liturgical design. The Igbo festivals of renewal and purification mirror ancient Ethiopian rites tied to the Nile's rise. Even the music of the Ekwe drum beats in the same rhythm as those ancient processional chants sung before the Ark and Axum. The same cosmic memory flows in both the belief that humanity's purpose is not domination but alignment with universal order. When the Igbo speak of Omenala, they recall not merely custom but cosmic law, the same law that guided the Ethiopian kings before the throne's light dimmed. What foreign historians have called tribal difference was in truth a spiritual strategy. The ancestors divided themselves to preserve the wholeness of truth. Ethiopia became the guardian of the physical, its monuments carved in stone, its faith visible, its lineages recorded. The Igbo became the guardians of the metaphysical, the law that cannot be destroyed by fire, erased by empire, or chained by colonizers. That is why even after centuries of slavery, colonization, and erasure, the Igbo spirit remains unbroken, defiant, and self-defined. They remember through vibration, story, and blood. Their memory does not need monuments because their DNA carries the throne's pulse. Every Igbo child born into struggle is proof that the Great Separation did not destroy the crown, it multiplied it across generations. When foreign explorers wrote their first distorted maps, they could not understand why the Igbo seemed stateless yet organized, leaderless yet deeply ordered. They could not see that the Igbo kingship was decentralized by divine design. The Great Separation had taught them that power concentrated in one man invites corruption, but power distributed among the people creates eternal balance. The king in Ethiopia sat on a visible throne, but in Igbo land the throne sat in every heart. This is why no empire could conquer them easily. Their authority was not tied to a palace, it was written in spirit. Their governance was a mirror of the universe itself, the sun and moon, male and female, elder and youth, all balanced, all essential, all divine. When we trace their migrations through Sudanese plains, Nubian valleys, and the river systems that carried human civilization, we find that their journey was not random. It was guided by celestial knowledge. The ancient navigators followed constellations, winds, and sacred geometry known only to priests and astronomers of the early world. They carried knowledge of iron long before Europe entered its own Iron Age. They built communities that flourished not on conquest but on communal wisdom. Their paths across the continent became arteries of trade and culture, linking the Horn of Africa to the Niger forests, long before foreign religions or empires claimed discovery. This was the hidden empire of memory, the empire that existed in silence, in language, in lineage, and in the unbroken drumbeat of survival. Every separation, though painful, carries divine intention. The ancestors knew that no civilization lasts forever if its wisdom is locked in one place. The throne had to travel. When the Igbo left Ethiopia, they were not running, they were redistributing light. They carried the throne not on their heads but in their hearts. That is why even today, when the world denies Africa's greatness, the echoes of that ancient kingdom whisper back through DNA, through intuition, through the dreams of those who remember who they are. It is the same spirit that compels African descendants across oceans to rise, reclaim, and rebuild, because deep within the soul of every black child is the pulse of the Great Separation, the memory of the moment when the divine crown left stone for stone. The world still does not understand the depth of what was lost and what was carried forward. The Great Separation is not just an African story, it is humanity's untold beginning. It speaks of a time when men and women walked in alignment with creation, when knowledge was not about power but about purpose. To study this story is to reclaim the compass of human destiny. It reminds us that history's truest kings are not those who ruled with armies, but those who ruled with balance. And among them the Igbo stood as living proof that greatness cannot be conquered. It can only migrate, transform, and rise again. The time has come to listen to the silence between Ethiopia's ancient stones and the Igbo's living words. In that silence lies the real story of civilization, the story of those who left the throne so that humanity might never forget its origin. The Great Separation was not an end, it was a beginning. And even now, as we uncover the fragments of that forgotten era, the ancestors are still speaking. They whisper through our languages, our art, our struggle for justice, our hunger for truth. They are calling us to remember that the throne still exists, not in a palace, not in a temple, but in the courage of every person who dares to rediscover their royal blood. That is the true inheritance of the Igbo. That is the eternal echo of the Great Separation. There was once a time lost in the swirling dust of forgotten ages, when the world was bound not by borders or empires, but by spirit. It was a time when the kings of Ethiopia and the priest kings of the Igbo spoke the same unspoken language, the language of balance, truth, and cosmic order. In that sacred dawn, the throne was not merely a seat of power, it was a bridge between the human and the divine, a living altar upon which the soul of civilization rested. But as centuries rolled like waves and kingdoms rose and fell, That bond began to fade into myth. Yet even now, if one listens closely in the rhythm of the Igbo drum, in the silent dignity of Ethiopian stone, there is an echo that refuses to die. It is the echo of the throne, a memory of unity between two worlds that once ruled not by conquest but by wisdom. The connection between the Ethiopian monarchs and the Igbo priest kings is older than the parchment of written history, older than the pyramids of Kush or the temples of Aksum. Both civilizations drew from a single ancestral spring, a sacred philosophy that saw the king not as a ruler but as a custodian of harmony. In Ethiopia, the monarch was seen as a living symbol of divine balance, chosen to reflect the order of heaven upon earth. Among the Igbo, that same principle breathed through the Eze, the priest king who ruled not through fear, but through wisdom. Guided by the laws of Omenala, the natural order set by the Creator long before man built kingdom. These were not rulers who demanded submission, but guardians who maintained the fragile equilibrium between man's spirit and nature. Long before foreign historians began to write their versions of Africa, these two nations were already intertwined through ancient migrations, trade routes, and spiritual exchanges. Ethiopian traders journeyed along the Nile carrying gold, salt, and sacred manuscripts. The Igbo, moving from the heart of the continent, brought iron symbolism and the art of sacred communication through signs that would later become Nsibidi. Between them stretched a network of wisdom, invisible to the modern eye yet deeply encoded in ritual language and belief. When an Ethiopian priest lit the incense before the ark, and an Igbo elder poured libation to the ancestors, both acts rose to the same heavens, echoing the same truth, that man's power means nothing unless it serves the balance of all things. But the echo of the throne is not only found in ritual, it lives in the bloodline of both peoples. The Ethiopian concept of Nagusa Nagast, the King of Kings, carries within it the same divine reflection that the Igbo call Eze. The Eze kings were not warriors. They were mediators between heaven and earth, men of peace who journeyed across communities not to conquer but to cleanse, to restore order where chaos threatened. Their mission mirrors the Ethiopian notion of sacred kingship, where the monarch's foremost duty was not expansion but preservation. Both traditions taught that the throne is not a reward. It is a responsibility that demands purity of heart and divine alignment. It is this shared principle that separates African kingship from the imperial ambitions of the foreign world. If one studies the architecture, symbols, and oral histories of both cultures, the mirror becomes clearer. The Ethiopian cross, with its endless interlocking loops, mirrors the Igbo cosmogram, which represents the cycle of life and eternity. The Solomonic lion of Ethiopia roars with the same spirit as the Igbo leopard, the emblem of power that must walk silently yet strike only in justice. Even in language, the similarities hum beneath the surface. The Igbo word chi, meaning divine spark or destiny, resonates with the Ethiopian Igziaber, the divine essence that guides every. These are not coincidences. They are echoes, fragments of a once unified philosophy that time tried but failed to silence. In the days when Ethiopia's throne still glowed with divine purpose, emissaries and priests carried scrolls across the Red Sea, through Nubia and down into the lush green lands of the Niger. Among them were those who sought not to rule but to preserve knowledge. It is said that when Ethiopia faced spiritual and political upheaval, a sacred order of priest-kings departed with relics of the old wisdom, journeying westward until they reached a land where rivers met the forest, a land where the soil itself sang with memory. There they settled, becoming the ancestors of the Nuri, founding the Igbo priestly dynasties that would one day shape an entire people's consciousness. It was in this migration that the echo of the throne became flesh in a new world, ensuring that the sacred science of order, balance, and divine kingship would never be lost, only transformed. Centuries passed, empires fell, foreigners came with flags and chains, rewriting history in their own image. Yet even as Ethiopia was labeled exotic and Igbo land was called tribal, both continued to live by the ancient code of sacred order. Ethiopia resisted colonization not merely through war but through an unbreakable spiritual confidence that its throne was eternal. The Igbo resisted domination not through kings but through councils, through a democracy so ancient that the West mistook it for disunity. But what the world did not see was that both systems flowed from the same root, a rejection of tyranny and a reverence for divine law above human authority. The true throne in both lands was never a chair, it was the spirit of justice that lived among the people. Today, when one looks at Africa and wonders how civilizations so advanced could be forgotten, the answer lies in the echo of that throne. The disconnection was deliberate. The colonizers feared unity, for unity would awaken memory and memory would restore power. So they divided what had once been whole, Ethiopia and Igbo, throne and priesthood, heaven and earth. But despite the centuries of silence, the echo has not faded. It speaks again in the rising voices of those reclaiming their identity, in the scholars rediscovering ancient scripts, and in the hearts of Africans who feel deep within that they come from something greater than history admits. To hear that echo is to remember is to awake, and to awaken is to reclaim the inheritance of kingship, not the kingship of crowns but the kingship of consciousness. The world measures greatness by wealth and conquest, but the ancestors measured it by alignment, by how closely a man walked with truth. That was the secret the Ethiopian monarchs and Igbo priest kings shared. Their power came not from armies but from wisdom, not from fear but from faith in the order of creation. It was a power no empire could replicate because it was not built, it was born. The echo of the throne still vibrates across the continent, calling the children of Africa to remember that they were once custodians of divine order. It calls every Igbo, every Ethiopian, every descendant of the sun to rise and see that their stories are not separate, they are verses of the same song. The same fire that burned in Axum still glows in Uri. The same spirit that guided Ethiopia's kings still walks in the Igbo forest. And though the world has tried to bury it beneath centuries of silence, truth has never been buried, it has only been waiting. The day is coming when the echo will no longer whisper but thunder. The day when the black world will look into its reflection and see not loss but lineage, not chaos but connection. That will be the day the throne rises again, not in a palace but in every awakened mind. That is what the ancestors meant when they said no throne truly dies, it only Ethiopia's stones still sing, the Igbo's drums still speak, and between them flows the eternal rhythm of the throne, the forgotten link that once bound kings to priests, heaven to earth, and man to his divine purpose.